right, welcome back into the Zach Gelb Show right here on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. 609-919-9200 is the telephone number if you want to hop on board with us. We open up the show talking about the greatness of the Golden State Warriors. They win the game last night. KD with the big-time shot to put the Warriors up by 1, and eventually they go on to get the victory, to go up 3-0 in this series, and now this series is officially over. I know there's still one more game probably to be played, but I just don't see how the Cavaliers come back from this one. And now joining us on the hotline is a former NBA ref. You, of course, know him as the man that did Bet on Basketball by refereeing. And also, he's now with refspicks.com. In addition to, he has a book out called Personal Foul. And that, of course, is Tim Donaghy, who's kind enough to hop on board with us right now. Tim, appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for the time, and how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on. How about that game last night, Tim? LeBron 39, Kyrie 38, but it wasn't enough. This Warriors team is really something.
Yeah, they're just on too many weapons for the Cavaliers. There's just a team that, I think in the next couple of years can really put a string together of championships that we haven't seen in the NBA before.
I have to ask you, though, about the refereeing last night. I want to get your general impressions on the refs last night, and especially that play late where Iguodala had the block. Some people are complaining today about the contact, but I thought it was overall a good job by the refs last night. How about yourself?
The reason people are complaining about the contact is because it's been something that has happened in the past, with Draymond Green. So it's really something that is an illegal act, and it should be penalized. It's a loose ball situation. So it's tough to see that, and in real time, I think that if it happens again, they'll be able to pick it up. But in all reality, I'm sure the referees wish that would have been a technical foul.
Now, the NBA, they want to get the most out of their money. What does the NBA say to these refs before we get ready to get set for this Game 4?
They're going to do everything they can to definitely drag this out to at least the Game 5. They're going to show them every play throughout the first 3 games that went against the Cavaliers that really shouldn't have, and they're going to program these referees to put the Cavaliers in an advantage and put the Warriors at a disadvantage and show them different things that they think were missed by the officials in the first 3 games and that they want called moving forward.
They could do that all they want, but I just don't see how the Warriors now lose a game in this series, especially after the fashion of last night. Do you agree that Game 4 is going to go to Golden State?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game. I think the referees are definitely going to favor the Cavaliers. I think the Cavaliers are going to try and come out and fight and do everything they can to avoid this sweep. And you never know if Golden State gets down a little bit, they might just throw in the towel and want to win it on their home floor. So I think the Cavaliers have a shot at maybe stealing one.
Hey, I have to ask you, we saw Draymond Green get a technical foul last night. He's always a loquacious player. What do you think it would be like if you were one of those refs having to referee a game Draymond Green's playing in?
He's just very similar to like a Ron Artest or a Dennis Rodman in that if he's in your primary area of responsibility, you have to keep your eyes on him at all times. He's a wild card, and he's a tough player and a tough kid. So, if I had an NBA team, he'd be somebody that I'd want on it.
Who were some of the guys, though, that when you went into an arena and you had to ref a game that you said, man, I just can't stand refereeing one of these guys' games?
Back in the Jailblazers days when they had Bonzi Wells and Rasheed Wallace, they were just tough because no matter what happened, they were always going to be a pain in the neck, and they were always going to come after you. They could be up 20, 25 points in a game, and they'd still be complaining about certain things that happened. So it just wasn't going to be an easy night no matter what with them.
Tim Donaghy with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. I know you said a lot of this stuff over the years, and I read the article a few years ago, but just share it with my audience about your experience having to referee and what other refs had to take in the game of basketball when they had to ref an Allen Iverson game with some of the incidents that did occur since we're in this area.
Yeah, Allen Iverson was a guy that some referees liked and other referees hated. So it was a situation where depending on your relationship, some guys tried to stick it to him, and some guys, wanted to help him. And he could be trouble, but for the most part, you could make violations or foul calls on him on every possession with, palming the basketball or traveling. And some guys did that, and some guys let it go.
You have such a career that's really unprecedented in this sport with everything that went on. And one of those nights that you were a part of was, of course, the legendary Malice at the Palace. What do you recall from that night, just looking back at it after all these years?
Just being scared to death, to be honest with you, because when, people were throwing chairs and bottles and different things out of the stands, it just got crazy to see the players and the fans fighting the way they did. And just trying to break it up, it definitely wasn't something that was going to end well.
And we've seen those types of fights before, not to that magnitude, and it just escalated to something that no one could ever imagine. When you went back and reviewed it, because I'm sure you did that as a crew, how did that thing get so out of hand? What was the event that really turned that thing out of hand to make it into an event that many people would like to forget?
It was just Ron Artest and Ben Wallace at the end fighting over a rebound, and it got to the point where Ron Artest did something stupid, and Ben Wallace took offense to it and pushed him with two hands. And, as we tried to break up the scuffle, it went over towards the score table, and somebody threw something out of the stands and just made it really escalate to the point where it was way out of hand.
The next time after that you refereed, I know there was a lot of suspensions, but the next time that you refereed either a Pistons game or a Pacer game, did the guy say anything to you before that game when you were the ref?
No, not a word, because I don't think it really came down to the officiating and whether it was the officials' fault or not. I think it came down to the fact that everybody knew, Steven Jackson and Ron Artest just were, way out of hand in doing what they did in going into the stands.
Wrapping up with Tim Donaghy, who joins us right now. Like I said, a lot of this has been documented over the years. Your case has been very public, and everyone wants to know about it. And you wrote the book, Personal Foul. But since we have you on here, and a lot of people are still interested in your story, just look back at what you did, and also, why'd you gamble on games? That's the first question I really want to ask you when we get into the gambling stuff. What made you gamble on these games?
I just think that I love gambling, and, it was a situation where I had inside information, and I knew that it was a great bet, and the line was probably off 4, 5, or even 6 points at times based on who the referees were and based on who the teams were that were playing. So, with that, I just started to, pass along that inside information when, I shouldn't have, and I kind of got hooked on the excitement.
How to get this out of hand, though?
I think it just got out of hand because, it was something that I just enjoyed and kind of consumed me.
And then when did you realize, when was that moment that you realized, hey, this is going down the wrong path and you're going to probably lose your job because of this and you're going to get caught?
I think it was just a situation where, we tried to stop a couple different times and we did. But then when, people in the organized crime aspect of it, still wanted the picks and kind of threatened me to a certain point, then, I knew I was in way too deep.
And a misconception about you is because people think that you rigged the outcomes of the games. And I've read those articles before where you had you were betting on the Spurs and you tossed Greg Popovich. Just clarify a little bit about that, because after all these years, some people still do think that you did rig the outcome of the games.
Yeah, I think that, Phil Scholar, who was a supervisory special agent from the FBI, wrote in the foreword for my book that, I definitely wasn't going out and making calls in games to, make sure any of the bets won. And even the NBA came out and said that they reviewed all the tapes and the games weren't fixed. So, it's a kind of a little bit of a misconception, but it's out there.
Do you miss being a referee?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when you talk about, some of the guys that are refereeing the NBA Finals right now are guys that I came up through the ranks with. So, yes, it's certainly something that I miss.
Do you still talk to some of those referees that you're still friendly with a few years ago?
I talked to one or two of them that, are still in the league, and a lot of them are retired.
Obviously, you've had a long time to think about this, and you wrote the book, and you had to spend some time in jail. But now you're doing something for a while with refspicks.com, and you've said that you show some remorse and you've showed some regret. It just makes me wonder, because if I was involved in this type of thing with gambling, I would want to distance myself totally away from the gambling culture, and you're not doing that right now because you're a part of a website that gives advice. Just give me your thought process on that a little bit.
You know what? I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree with you more. It definitely wasn't my first choice of profession, but when everything else kind of was shut down for me and it wasn't working, people came to me with this in mind, and it took off and did so well so fast. It was something that I couldn't turn away from, to be honest with you.
What did you try to do otherwise, other than refspicks.com?
I sent out, hundreds of resumes to different companies, and none of them kind of panned out. So definitely, I tried to do the best I could at getting another job, but this was something that, like I said, was presented to me and took off so fast and went so well that I couldn't walk away from it.
Tell me a little bit about the website, if you don't mind, Tim.
Yeah, it's refpicks.com, and it's a website where right now we have an 800 number up there, and we have a bunch of handicappers that work for us, and we give advice on all sporting events that have a line, and we kind of help people do what we can in managing their money and doing it the right way.
Now, we know that you're never going to be able to referee a NBA game again or a college game again, but have you ever tried to referee a high school game, or are you not allowed to do that?
No, I never tried to do that. Definitely a situation where I had some knee problems now anyway, so I'm not going to be in a position to do any more refereeing ever again.
Yeah, you probably have so many good stories just because you got to see a lot of behind-the-scenes part of the league being a ref. Share me, I know we talked a little bit about Iverson and Malice at the Palace, but share me another story or two from your time from the NBA.
There's so many of them. I got a good story for you in regard to Dennis Rodman. He was a guy that was warming up before the game, and every time that, he went up for a layup, he would, come around in line, and he was reaching down, scratching his groin area, and after the fifth time, I said to him, "Hey, Dennis, what's the problem here? You look like you have an issue." And he just looked at me and said, "Tim, I ate a big handful of almonds at lunchtime, and it really flared up my herpes." And I said, "Well, you got to stop doing what you're doing here. Everyone's looking at you. And by the way, you better not be getting 20 rebounds tonight, because I'm going to be touching this basketball all night, and it's grossing me out."
Who were some of the guys that you were the closest with? Because we all know there's some refs that, they play favorites a little bit, and they do develop some good relationships with some players.
I like Charles Barkley. I like David Robinson. I like Tim Duncan. Pretty much the guys that were the good guys that, were, good to be around and really didn't go after the referees unless they had a real, good, hard reason for it.
We love Barkley here, of course, being in Philadelphia. Now, of course, the whole world gets to see him with all the TV stuff, but he was even on the Stanley Cup final intermission report the other night. Got any good Barkley stories for us?
Yeah, actually I do. I called a technical foul on him when he was in Houston, and Rudy Tomjanovich came running up, and he said, "Tim, what's the technical foul for?" And I told him, he said, "Nah." He said, "Charles would never do that." I said, well, he did it. He goes, "Well, he told me he didn't do it." And I said, "Well, you're going to have to watch the tape." And I went in the locker room after the game and looked at the tape, and it was on the tape. It showed up perfectly, and Rudy Tomjanovich was right outside our locker room. And I said to him, "Here, Rudy, take a look at this." And he had bet me dinner on the court that he was right. And he looked at me and goes, "That son of a bitch, Charles, he did do it." He goes, "Listen, I'm going to send you in some coupons for McDonald's." I said, "McDonald's, you told me it was a steak dinner." So he walked away laughing, and I got in the shower, and Charles, he must have went in and said something to Charles, because Charles came into our locker room, emptied out all the sodas and Gatorades out of the big bucket of ice, and threw it on me and ran out laughing.
Oh, my, that's a great story. Did you end up getting a steak dinner from the coach?
Never got it from him, but I do talk to him on Facebook from time to time. He's a good guy, Rudy.
Hey, let me ask you one more thing, because we always see times where refs are in games and they just got to take it from a coach. What was the worst, earful that you got from a coach where you just had to take it?
I think that there's times when a guy like George Karl would really go after a referee, and if the score was tied or it was a close game, as a referee, you don't want to give them a technical foul to decide the outcome of a game, so you kind of just eat it a little bit. And you get them the next time, and that's what I did. I had George Karl about 2 or 3 weeks later, and within the first quarter, I threw him out of the game, and he even made a comment in the newspaper that was payback for a previous game. So the coaches are smart. They know a lot of times what the referees are doing, and it's just a matter of trying to, get along as best as possible.
Now, let me just talk about the future of the Sixers, since you still do watch the game, and you were a local guy at one point. What do you think about the current state of the franchise?
I think they're in a great position to be a team that could overtake Cleveland in a year or two. I think they have a lot of great young talent, and if they can make a good draft pick, I think a guy like Josh Jackson would be perfect, because if you look at a lot of the championship teams, you always have that one great, gritty, tough defender, and I think he could be it for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Since this was a big part of your life, basketball, and it clearly still is with the stuff that you do with refspicks.com and how many radio interviews and the book and everything that you've done, how long did it take you, though, after you had to resign and everything happened with your fallout with the league? How long did it take you to watch basketball again?
Probably a couple years. It all went down around 2007, 2008. Probably not till I got out of jail did I start watching NBA games again in 2010. They were on the TVs all the time when I was in jail, and I just would walk by and wouldn't even look at it. So it took a while for sure.
Is it still tough for you to watch the game? Because you used to be a part of it, and I'm sure when you watch the game now, it does get those flashbacks of memories from the past, right?
Absolutely. It's difficult, man. I had a great job, running up and down the floor with the greatest athletes in the world, making a good amount of money. So definitely a situation where, I regret what I did. I miss it dramatically, but I can't turn back time. If I could, I would, and I'd be back on that floor. I screwed up tremendously, and I paid a big, huge price for it. But, again, I can't continue to, turn back time or look over my shoulder. I just got to move forward and try to make the best of it.
Tim, last one is Tim Donaghy joins us right now. With what the Warriors are doing as they're about to be 16-0 in these playoffs, we have all these hypothetical questions, of course, on the radio. If you could see one matchup, take two teams from any era you want and play them in a basketball game, what two teams would you take?
I think you have to go with the Golden State Warriors. And since I'm a Philadelphia guy, I remember Moses Malone, Julius Erving, Mo Cheeks, Doug Collins, and all those guys. I think, I remember Moses going full, like they were going to sweep everybody. So, I got to go with the Sixers against the Golden State Warriors.
Well, now it's going to be faux for the Warriors. Who wins that matchup, by the way?
I think that the Warriors are too strong. They can score too many points too quick in too many different areas. I think it'd be tough for anybody to beat this team that's put together right now.
Once again, the website, refspicks.com, and, of course, the book is Personal Fouls. Has been out for a few years, of course. He is Tim Donaghy joining us on the Zach Gelb Show. Tim, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
You got it, pal. Anytime.
Thanks so much. There's Tim Donaghy joining us on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. And so much of this has been public and it's been transparent, and we've been so many years removed. But the first time you get the guy on the phone, I've never talked to him before, I had to go back on some of the history and some of the wrongdoing that he has done. And I thought the question to me, when I went into that interview, the thing I most wanted to know, because when we had him on, he said, hey, do you mind, and we were scheduling this before, do you mind promoting my website, refspicks.com? And I said, no problem. That usually happens. A guest comes on, we promote something for them, and it's all good. And then I was driving home yesterday after I read that message, and I go, wow, he's with this website, refspicks.com. If I was someone, he even said, hey, eventually you got to make money, and this wasn't his first line of work, his first choice that he wanted to do. But that was something that I was really curious about, because if I was him and my life was ruined, and he was with the mob, placing bets for the mob and giving them advice, he went to jail, he lost his job, he's been publicly humiliated, and it's all because of that gambling culture. And that is what was the downfall of his life, was getting introduced and betting on these games and betting on games that he was refereeing on, which of course is a massive no-no. I would think to myself, I would never, once you got out of jail and you had to go to jail for this, ever get involved again with this gambling culture. But Tim Donaghy is, of course, with refspicks.com. So that's what we got with the former NBA ref, who, of course, did bet on basketball games. And that's a big thing, where I was reading on some stuff last night. And if you followed the case closely, and if you followed everything that's been said, he bet on games. And this is tough to believe, but he bet on games as a ref, but did not change the outcomes of the games. He wasn't rigging it, according to what he says, and according to what people at the FBI have said, and also people from the NBA. And when I first heard that a few years ago, I thought to myself, really? So you're telling me if you place, or, let's say the mob or someone, they place two grand on a game or whatever, and it's Spurs -4, you would think with everything that's on the line, Donaghy would have made calls to make sure that won. But that wasn't the case. There was a Spurs game where he actually threw Greg Popovich out of the game. And I was reading the article online, and they said, what the heck are you doing? And he said, hey, I'm not going to rig the outcomes of the game. I'm still going to do my job, just like I would have done the job if we didn't have any money on the line. It's a fascinating story, and it's something that you couldn't even write up and predict that one of the NBA referees would be betting on the games and all that. It's just wild. It's still a wild story after all these years. It really is. And we appreciate Tim Donaghy for joining us today on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. 609-919-9200 is the telephone number. Dave Miller will join us, of course, coming up later on in the show at 5:15. Okay, I got to get to the poll question. I'm not going to answer it right now, but let me set the stage for you in our poll question today. And you can vote on it on my Twitter at Zach Gelb. The Fox Sports Radio 920 The Jersey poll question today. Who is the next Philadelphia sports team to win a playoff series? The choices, of course, the Eagles, Sixers, Flyers, and Phillies. No, we're not including the Philadelphia Soul. We're not including any college. Out of the four major sport teams in Philadelphia, who is the next to win a playoff series? Early returns, 44% say the Eagles, 33% say the Sixers, 17% say the Flyers, and 6%, I'm surprised it's that high, but 6% say the Philadelphia Phillies. 4:37 is the time. We'll take a break here on the Zach Gelb Show. When we come back, we got to talk a little bit about Doug Peterson. He did speak today at the NovaCare Complex and did give us some information. Are the Eagles interested in Jeremy Maclin? We'll get to that next on the Zach Gelb Show.